Hello, this is an assessment of a Bluthner upright piano made in 1910, 130 centimetres tall. It's a beautifully made instrument to extremely high quality and has an action system that I've mentioned before. We'll look at that in a second, but the key tops are really good quality ivories and 85 keys, as a lot of pianos of this age are 85 keys, which is fine if you're studying because you don't need 88 for the exams. There may be a few pieces that could have 88 notes, but they've always got an option there. So if you want to study on one of these, it's an exceptionally good piano, and certainly you can study on these as much as you can on a modern one, but it does need a lot of work and regulation, as we'll see in a minute. There's a bit of fading there as the lid's been up, and obviously it fades where the lid's been up behind. So if you've got a piano, I've always mentioned this, that it's good to vary it, so sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed. The piano has excellent legroom, 64.5 centimetres, which is 61.5, 61 is a typical Yamaha U1, for instance, and the pedals are very low as well, 5.5, so that's lower, 7 is normal for a modern piano, so plenty of legroom if you're a tall person. Now it has a superb style of action. We've made video about this, best upright action ever made, I think I've called it, if you look in our YouTube channel, and I'll show you why. Now that has moved, by the way, there's a string missing. We'll look at the strings in a minute, because I just want to feature the action first. So I've taken the other bolts out already. If you take these bolts out, not many or any other piano is so beautifully designed for technicians, I don't think. That just fits flush. You see, I've taken that bolt out. It fits flush. You don't need to keep putting the bolts back in. And if you want to regulate the action, now look at this. The dampers are attached to the strings, and that is just such a phenomenal idea. So the dampers move separately. You need a metal bar here in order to facilitate so it doesn't bend. Obviously they've had to redesign it somewhat from a standard action, which is all together. These dampers are normally here. I'll show that on the other video if you're interested in having a look. But this is so easy to regulate. The spoons here, you can regulate manually if you want to. I'd probably recommend a tool, but you could do that. And you can regulate the springs if you want to strengthen those. You can regulate the dampers. Wires here, again with a tool is best, and well, everything's so sensible about it really, and this just fits back like a glove, so you can pull it back and it actually rests on here as well, so you can pull it back and it sits there, and then you can push it back in again once you've regulated it, pull it out to regulate. In fact, I'll just show you a regulation, because the bottom dampers, this one here for instance, I think it's that one, is hardly coming off. So there's a bottom damper that's hardly coming off, and really needs regulating. So just pull the action forwards and look at the spoon here. I'm going to do it manually without a tool, because you can do, obviously. You just pull it this way a little bit and it should come off earlier. Let's see if that might be too early. Let's have a look. Now it's coming off enough, and a bit late still, so it's quite simple. Should be about, we said before, 1/3 to 2/3 of the way to the string, the hammer, before that comes off. So just pull it a bit more. Very difficult to gauge how much, obviously. If we look at it again, halfway, just after halfway. So phenomenal. And I mentioned before, it'd be wonderful if manufacturers made this style of action. Technicians would be really pleased. So in summary, again, we can regulate these. These are weak, actually. They need replacing. And this, I think, we'd need to replace the dampers. There's much echo in the piano. If you listen to lots of echo, more than the average. There's echo in pianos anyway, but this one, that damper's not working because there's one string missing. So there's a broken string here. And the other major issue is that the tuning pins are on the loose side. If we look at here, someone set these in as far as they'll go. If you look at some of these here. So really there should be a gap. Normally there's a gap between the covering of the rest blank here and the tuning pin. Sorry, and this where the coil starts. So because they've been loose, someone set them in, which is perfectly okay, but their maximum, setting the pins is something we've talked about before, but they're at their maximum and they are slightly loose still. So they need replacing. And the client suggested we needed to replace the rest blank. I don't think so on a Bluthner. You could replace the rest blank, but it's a huge amount of work. You've got to dismantle the whole thing. Certainly we could do that, and that would be like a new piano rest blank in it. But normally these are original tuning pins. So you can tell these are original strings, unless someone happened to copy exactly what Bluthner originally did. This is a typical coning of a Bluthner string, as we've shown before. And the pins, well, they're quite loose to my standard medium style lever that I use for the demonstrations normally. So they're definitely not, say, like if a new piano would have tighter. Unfortunately, new pianos tend to come with larger pins, which means you've got less option to change the pin. Obviously you want them quite small, especially in the bass. So in the bass end, you often find if you've restrung a piano, they're really large. So we want small pins to start with, and then we can replace these with wider, thicker pins, and then it'll be really tight. I don't think we're going to need to change the rest blank, but if we did find that we put larger pins in and they weren't holding, as you get on very old Bechstein pianos, pre-1902, we've mentioned before, you really need to change the rest blanks on those very frequently, because the rest blank doesn't seem to be manned for the job for central heating. But these, I think, this would be, but we're obviously going to check that. So that's the major work to do, and then it's general regulations. Somebody has regulated so they pulled the hammers forward a bit. There's about a 45-44 hammer blow here, and they've re-regulated the keys, so there's about 10 millimeters key dip. Well, that's what you can do if you have 10 millimeters key dip. You change the hammer blow, you raise the capstans, or in this case rockers. Sorry if I'm going a bit fast, but there's other videos showing these things. These extra screws in here aren't that essential really, and they don't do much, but the Bluthner put them in because they thought they'd be useful. A lot of manufacturers do. So the piano isn't disastrously out of tune, but you can hear it's out of tune. The hammer tone is quite brash on certain hammers. Now, of course, they can be voiced in, and they have been refaced already. I'm not certain. Let's feel them. Actually, probably they are hard enough to just voice. But you can have the option, ideally, to replace these to give them more, just a modern hammer, a bit more bounce. But you have to make sure you put small ones on. These are very light hammers, and they're the right for the weight of the piano. So original hammers and be refaced. So there's lots of decisions to make there, sometimes difficult ones. I think the obvious one is actually repinning and restringing, and obviously that's a broken string. The strings won't look the same here because the coning is difficult. I don't know any string makers that do this, so if you do know and you're in the trade, then it'd be useful to learn from you, as anybody does the original Bluthner coning. But normally you see a little ridge there, as we've shown before. So it's a fine instrument. There is some obvious work to do, repinning and restringing. Replacing the hammers is difficult decisions to make here. The damper springs and dampers. So the dampers are definitely too much echo. You can hear that while I'm playing it. So staccato is more echo than you would expect. Though you might say, well, the most important thing for me is to have the piano staying in tune, but while we've got the piano, it's worth doing as much as we can really. Key weighting is good actually with these hammers. If you replace the hammers, you'd have to redo everything, regulation, weighting and so on, so that's a big job. And someone's reduced the hammer blow and the key dip, so that is fine. It does feel all right, not really a problem with that, though we could put it back to what it was before if necessary. So that's a Bluthner upright piano, 130 centimetres tall, made in 1910 approximately, and with what I consider to be the world's best designed action. And if you've got any comments, please do leave them. I'd love to encourage manufacturers to make pianos again with this style of action, but I'm not sure if my opinion holds much sway. But anyway, if you agree with me, please do put your comments. Now it's quite echoey at the moment, and the main problem is the tuning pins are a bit on the loose side, and I think that's the main thing the client was interested in as to what to do. And I think just replace them with larger pins will be fine, but if we do find the rest blank is faulty, then obviously we'd have to replace the rest blank too. Well, I doubt it. I doubt that's the case. In very old Bechstein, pre-1902, that definitely is very often the case. has a beautiful tone, although the hammers are letting it down at the moment. Definitely need voicing. Replacing them would be even better, but a very, very long job to get the right weight of hammers to match the piano. It's a very long job changing hammers, because you have to not only buy the hammers, put them on, but you have to line them to the strings really well, make sure they're the right size hammers. It's definitely a job that you don't take lightly. You have to really think about it before you do it. There's a beautiful tone. And I think with new strings it'll be, if anything, better in the mid-treble. The bass might not be any better, but I think we can replicate the bass with new strings too. So thank you very much for listening. If you want a piano restored, please do write to info@robertspianos.com.